Here. All right, so with that said, I'm going to be bringing up Vivek, right? That's who's coming up next. All right, so I'm going to bring up Vivek. Vivek is going to be taking you guys through an interesting update of our roadmap and kind of like what is new here at files.com and kind of how to get some stuff to,
No.
Vivek
That's all right.
is going to be teaching you how to unleash the power of the platform, I'm told.
There you go. Thank you for that.
All right, everyone give it up for Vivek. Woo! All right. Good.
Oh, there you go, thank you. Yeah, so yes, I'm not going to talk about the roadmap because we're going to talk about that later. Yeah, I think I do want you guys to take away from that, like, we are a bunch of innovators, so I do encourage all of you guys to set up those one-on-one meetings because I personally want to hear from you. My team, our R&D team is all here and we want to hear from you guys and how we can make things better for you. But this particular session, so thank you again for coming. All of you guys traveled to come here and attend this event. We have a fun-filled packed agenda for next 2 days that we're going to give you a lot of information. I'm going to go through what I've heard, what we heard. We actually had an event in September and some of you were there, so thanks for coming again. But we heard that there's people who want to know a little bit more about the platform. When you go back to your desk and go back to your day jobs, you're using our platform, using the software, but maybe you don't understand the breadth of everything that we do, and all of you guys are committed to us, so you want to know a lot more about what the platform's capable of doing. So we just thought we'd take a chance to give you a little bit about what that platform is all about and the breadth of the capabilities. Don't take out your pens and try to take notes of all of this stuff because every one of these topics that I'm going to touch upon, we actually have a session dedicated to talk about that. So I'm going to introduce you to some of the sessions that are going to come up as well. So what we want to do is, again, yes, unleash the power of the platform. You're already subscribed to files.com. You're using files.com. And how can you do more with that platform? Or even the things that you're doing today, how can you optimize it better? Remove any human interaction or manual interaction that you have, and how can you automate the platform, have it optimized for what you're trying to achieve? So with that, I still want to take the time to thank you again. I know Kevin said thank you, but I want to thank you guys personally as well because it's because of you guys that we're able to actually innovate and invest in our platform and continue to innovate and evolve. So thank you for your trust and your continued partnership and also from everyone else at files.com. So thank you for that. So let's talk about files. Files show up in so many different ways in your business, right? You're already using us for your business critical file transfers, file flows, file exchanges, securely exchanging with partners, customers, even internally between systems when you need to exchange files to automate things. You know, we have many of you guys actually here from the healthcare, pharmaceutical, and insurance line of the businesses. We have folks that are dealing with human resources, right? When you're dealing with files that are really related to patient data, PII data, you're actually dealing with coverage, claim information, underwriting, and also a lot of benefits information, payroll information. A lot of these files are business critical files that you're using files.com to move around, exchange with partners, customers, or just automate your processes so your business flow doesn't stop, right? Many of you guys are using us, but there are chances there are a lot more use cases and a lot more scenarios within your enterprise that you potentially could leverage. So what we want to do is kind of go through the capability of the platform to help you achieve all this and more, because your business is continuing to grow. Your business continuously changes. How you deal with data, files, public cloud, private cloud, on-premise, all of these challenges continue to grow. The number of applications that you're interfacing with continues to change. So in that world, how do you partner with us to even get more value out of what you have? So with that, what we do have is the commonality. When I look across the room, across our entire customer base, there are patterns that start to emerge. The patterns are typically, I've kind of taken the time to compile all these patterns into a few different what we call use cases. So the use cases that we typically see, and again, this probably applies to almost every one of the businesses here, and I'd love to know if it doesn't fit into this model, because we want to understand that. But what I see is typically businesses, as yourself, need to exchange files with other businesses. If these files don't get exchanged, your transactions don't happen. Your business doesn't occur. If you're in a e-commerce environment and the catalog information and the pricing information doesn't get transmitted, then you can't actually service your e-commerce business, right? So large manufacturing company, right, automatically synchronizing data, inventory data for e-commerce. That's one of the examples. Just one business needs to exchange data with other businesses. It could be one to many different businesses that you're dealing with. And what we've seen is typically that you want these exchanges to happen ideally, without any human intervention. It should just happen automatically, right? How many of you guys would just hope that you actually don't have to log into files.com to manage your day-to-day operations, right? Many hands, half of your hands are going up, right? Ideally, you want to just configure the system so you can just make things effortless for the entire organization. So we thrive for that, but the other way that we see it is maybe it's all internal. You have many different business applications, some that are sitting on-premise, some that are sitting in the public cloud, some that are sitting in a private cloud environment, right? Or just services that you're subscribing to that are software as a service applications. All of those systems need data. How are you exchanging data between two different systems? Basically an integration between the two different systems. Well, ideally, it should just be all done through APIs. But how many of these systems that exist that we use actually have direct API integration between systems? Not everyone, not all of them. So inherently, you have to rely on files to be able to get the data to that other system. So whether it's CSV files with records and data in it, or JSON files or XML files that you're basically taking and exchanging that to the target system, normalizing it and so it can get consumed, a lot of that stuff can actually be completely automated, but how do you get those across? Especially if you're sitting in an on-premise environment and the SaaS service is running in the cloud. That data transfer is a challenge because it needs to be done instantaneously so you can react to the business very quickly, right? So all of those kind of scenarios of systems talking to other systems and exchanging data is another use case that we have. And another one I see is it's still around automation, but there's actually humans involved, right? When you actually need to interface with clients, customers that will, hundreds of them, thousands of them, potentially sending you files, sending you information, or you sending them information as a distribution of benefit summary, for example, right? That you need to create and then send it out to the mass. Those are involving humans. So I call that a B to C. It's basically a customer or consumer interaction where a human is involved. But for example, in this scenario, we've got a large university that's taking in applications and submissions of the application and supplementary materials for grants and other things, and seamlessly getting that processed on the back end to their CRM system. So they'll receive files. Many of our customers are using things like inboxes or shared links to be able to achieve things like that. But the downstream interaction is completely automated because there's no human opening up each one of these files within files.com. It's going to a downstream CRM system. And then you will actually interact with the files there. So that's another use case. Another use case that we see, not the most prominent, but we see a lot of our customers doing this, which is internally or externally, I need to exchange data with just my colleagues or my partners, and I need to collaborate with them. It may be a PowerPoint presentation, it may be a design document, it may be a Word document, a PDF that you need to exchange with people. And to be able to even do things like real-time co-authoring. If the law firms are actually interacting with two different lawyers, they could actually log in and actually see the interaction between each other, redlining things, and commenting on the same exact document at the same exact time. So co-authoring and just collaboration in general is another use case. And lastly, when we deal with all this data, whether it's transient, whether it's persistent, what you want to do is you want to protect it, right? You want to protect yourself from ransomware attacks, so you have a copy of that data. be able to archive it for archival purposes if the transient data is left, but you still want to get back to that original piece of content. So typically, all of the use cases that we see are combined into these patterns that we see from our customers. And again, when you're trying to do these type of interactions, you should think about the fact of, what part of this do I do today? Are there other parts of the businesses that actually are doing other types of patterns, and can I, leverage the platform for those purposes? But having said that, then let's get into a little bit more of the platform itself. What is the platform? So I'll emphasize this part a little bit more. If you guys haven't, sort of grappled around your head around this, the power of the SaaS platform is the following. Majority of the managed file transfer vendors that are out there all require you either to run and install that software and manage that entire infrastructure on your own, in your own data centers or in the cloud infrastructure. We don't require you to do that. We run everything for you. You don't actually have to run any of the infrastructure. There's one little exception, which is if you're going to install something that is going to talk to your on-premise software, that's the only time you're actually running any of the files.com software. Other than that, you're basically just using the cloud services for the most part. But what the platform does is really simply put, it allows you to store files, allows you to transfer files, automate those processes, whether you need to manipulate the files, move the files, delete the files, or integrate to your cloud services, on-premise services, or business applications. Those are the four sort of big buckets, and if you just remove all the complexity of what Files.com does, at the highest level, we store, transfer, automate, and integrate. Well, let's dig into some of that stuff. So when you talk about store, we allow you to store files in Files.com. Files.com has many different regions that allows you to store things in the public cloud ourselves. And that's included in your subscription, so you can actually go, use that today. Many of you already do. The other instance is when you store your files in a private cloud environment. You may have a policy to say, we will use Azure or we will use AWS to store all of our files. That's considered more of a private cloud, and we will integrate to that. On-premise, you may have data that's sitting in file servers on-premise, and you might not be able to get away from that. That's okay. Leave them where it is, and we will integrate to those data sources. And also what we allow us to do is move data between those sources. If you're thinking you want to migrate off of your on-premise into the cloud, we actually help you with a lot of that stuff. Obviously on the transfer side, that's our bread and butter, so we do this obviously we talk about ourselves as enterprise-ready, secure file transfer, managed file transfer system. That really means we actually support the gamut of the entire file transfer needs, all the way from the typical traditional file transfer protocols to even the most modern protocols. In fact, even on the traditional file transfer protocols, there's people that need to use legacy ciphers as well as modern ciphers. You may not be able to get your partner to change the way they require you to use those technologies. And so we comply, and we allow you to be able to use the platform to adjust based on your business needs. Encryption, private key management, if you want to do GPG encryption, decryption, the highest level of security, and Kevin touched upon some of that earlier, right? But also combining the managed file transfer capabilities, automating the file transfer with the human-centric file sharing capabilities. Whether you're using things like folder sharing or shared links or inboxes, just creating a web hosting site that people can come to, or using our built-in co-authoring capabilities where Office documents, two people can log in and author those files at the same time. So those are examples of file sharing and collaboration that we support from the same exact platform. And on the automation side, a lot of you are already familiar with using our automations, but the idea is no code. No code to let you do some of the automations and tasks that you want to do. And there's very, very granular configurabilities that we have with the advanced sort of triggering, scheduling, webhooks that you can initiate the workflows with. and to be able to do things like sync or manage files, move files, and then lastly, integration. So I'm not going to dig too far into the integrations because the next slide is really going to give you a lot more depth. But just know that you can use our integrations that are pre-built. We spend a lot of time actually writing these integrations ourselves. We're not expecting somebody else to take our SDKs and write integrations. We invest in this ourselves from our R&D team. So we'll go into the different areas of integration, but just again, re-emphasizing the fact that the entire platform is a software as a service platform managed by us, run by us, and you simply just have to log in and start using it, right? So what we do is for a service provider like us, you're expecting us to have compliance. So SOC 2 Type 2 compliance is something that we go through every year, and we keep that audit up and running. So keeping our perimeter secure, our platform secure, so we don't get hit with any kind of a breach of any sort. So we spend a lot of time investing in that, plus looking at things like HIPAA, making sure the platform is also available for accessibility, that you need accessibility, or things like GDPR for protection. And lastly, it's all about security. So we use the most modern technologies to keep that platform up to date so that it's completely secure and there's complete audit trail built into the platform. So with that, actually I do apologize. The next slide is going to be quite a bit of an eye candy, but there's a method behind the madness. So keep up with me on this thing, but there's a lot of information. I'm gonna see if I can just break this down for you guys. Again, the idea is for you guys to understand the breadth of the entire platform and then hone into the specific areas that you want to know a little bit more about. But when we talk about Files.com being a software as a service platform, all of the stuff that you're doing, which is file transfers and sharing and encryption and things of that nature, are all things that are running in the cloud. This is our software running in the cloud, servicing your business, and everything that we develop is done with a mindset of everything has to be exposed through APIs and SDKs. That abstraction layer is really, really important. Why? The reason is because we allow you to use our APIs and SDKs to write and interface with our platform, but more importantly, our own developers use the same set of APIs to build our own technologies. So we continuously evolve this to make sure that it's really performant, secure, and allows you to use that flexibly. What that means is when you're interfacing, we're typically dealing with users, right? Users that are actually administering the platform, or you could actually have, so that could be just IT folks administering the system, but we also have developers, right? We may have integrators that are using the platform. You have line of business, actual end users that you're servicing, right? Or just bots and systems that you've configured that you want to interact with Files.com. Not only that, you're also dealing with external users. So you may have partner users, partner systems that are connecting to you directly. So how do all these users or systems interface with Files.com? On the incoming side, when you're connecting to Files.com, it's typically through one of our client applications. The client applications on the left are all developed by Files.com. So we have a desktop application that you can use to log in and see all your files. There's actually the web. All of you guys should be familiar with our web. That's one of the most prominent ways. There's also the internal and externally facing portal that you can have that's completely branded for your customers or partners. And in addition, Android and iOS applications that you can use to log into the platform. And some of you who want to actually take the power of using scripting or CLI, CLI level interaction, you can actually use those clients to interface with Files.com. Again, look at the layer of the APIs and SDKs. What we do is anything that you add to the platform, new innovations, new capabilities, they will automatically get exposed through our clients, through the APIs. So new features, you just kind of take advantage of those new features as they come out because we develop using those APIs. And again, if you're going to use those pre-built ones that we supply, or we allow you to just use FileZilla or CyberDuck to interface with Files.com. right? You can use third-party applications, SFTP, FTP clients to be able to connect with us. And lastly, is custom apps, right? You already have an existing workflow. You have a file flow that you already have in your business that you want to include files.com in your process. In that case, you're likely using our SDKs and the APIs to create a custom application. So that's on the incoming side of the side of the world. When we talk about this thing called the control plane, there's actually a separation that we made for a very good reason, which is the control plane is the functionality. But where does the data sit? Where do the files sit? Where does the information actually go? And that typically is separated out into the data plane, which is storage, right? You actually want to store files. They need to go somewhere. So we actually provide 7 different locations, public cloud locations in different countries, because you may have regional storage needs or regional routing needs. We allow you that flexibility of storing the files almost anywhere that you want to store. Not only that, what about on-premise? So we actually have services that will integrate to your on-premise service, on-premise storage. Or you have a counterparty that will say, you connect to my SFTP service. So again, you use those connectors to be able to connect to someone else's SFTP or FTP services, right? And so that's kind of how it ties together. But the reality is that's not the only storage that we're dealing with. We're also dealing with customers who want to have, some customers want to say, send the files over to my Box account or my SharePoint account. I already have a OneDrive account. Can you interface with those file sharing platforms so I don't have to continuously create shared links and send it out to people? Just put it into that particular account and store the files there. So again, we allow you to integrate with that. But what about private cloud storage? You may have your own Azure instances, own AWS instances where you want the files to end up. And lastly, we actually integrate with business applications or middleware applications. If you're familiar with iPaaS, things like Boomi, a lot of the customers are starting to use iPaaS systems to orchestrate their integrations between systems. Those platforms don't do a great job when it comes to files. So they partner with us, we partner with them to be able to create integration that are file-based. So we are optimizing for the file-based interactions and transfers, and they do more of the actual exchange based on APIs. So we integrate with them. Inherently what that does is allows you to integrate to just about any business applications, because those iPaaS systems integrate with hundreds and hundreds of business applications. So through them, or some systems directly support SFTP, you can now integrate files.com with hundreds and thousands of applications. Okay, so that was a lot of information I threw at you guys, but just at the highest level, if you're going to take away something, is basically if you're a user or a bot that's interfacing with files.com, chances are you're using one of the existing applications or a third-party application to upload files or download files from us. But if you're connecting out to other services other than files.com, if you're connecting out to storage, or you want to store the files, or you want to interact with the file sharing service, or you want to orchestrate a business process with multiple systems, you can actually integrate to outbound systems that we allow you to connect to. Okay? All right, so with that, that's not the only thing that you're looking for from a platform vendor, right? You're actually looking for a lot more controls within your platform. Those controls are basically what allows you to have trust in using our platform. If you go from moving from on-premise and managing the entire infrastructure, FTP infrastructure, or an existing MFT platform, and you want to migrate to us, you're expecting a lot more from us, which is, can I control my data governance? Can I control where that data goes? Can you actually make sure that the files are encrypted? Can I manage my own keys, right? Again, I don't want you guys to take out a pen and paper to write these things down, because we're actually going to have sessions later on today that are going to go into these details. So data governance, security. We talked a lot about security, but there's so many elements to security, which is how our users going to log in and get access to your platform? How are they going to interact with the platform? Are you going to use single sign-on? Can you differentiate between a regular user with two-factor authentication versus a bot user? And how do you handle those differences? Things like providing whitelisting and session expiration, geo-blocking, and these are all security things that your CISO team is probably going to mandate to you guys. And how do you use those? And what are the best practices? We're going to talk about that. What about compliance? You have compliance teams that continue to drive needs for you guys. So how do you keep all of these things in mind while designing your Files.com platform? And then lastly, operational visibility. We talked about this being completely, you don't have to log in, but if you don't log in, how do you know things are working just fine, right? We've invested significantly in operational visibility all the way from very, very granular logging down at every single microservices level. If you remember all of those red boxes in the previous slide, all those red boxes mean that they're distinctly different services that we're providing. An example is, how do you use SFTP to transfer a file to somebody? That's our SFTP service, right? File sharing, can I create an inbox and can I receive files from the inbox and then forward it to the downstream folder? That's a service that we create. So every one of these services, I mean by microservice. So every single granular service that we create, there's actually a detailed level of logging that we provided. So if you just go to the logging section on the left nav and go look at every one of those services, I believe there's about 11 or 12 of these that we have. So again, by what services that you're using, we have detailed level of logging. Not only that, we have out-of-the-box integrations with your own monitoring solutions. So SIEM solutions, if you're already using it, you just configure Files.com to be able to export all of that logging information. So in real time, it will actually send all that logging information to your SIEM platform. So now you can actually do dashboarding and reporting and analysis on those external platforms, the same that you can actually access in Files.com as well, right? All right. So continuing down that path, what else? You actually want flexibility. Again, flexibility in how you deploy your software. Again, we're going to give you a SaaS platform to go run this whole thing so you don't have to go manage it. But where's my data going to reside? How am I going to integrate with business systems? And what's my workflow going to look like? So again, you can use automations, use integrations that we have out of the box to be able to do that. But again, what we're going to do is have a dedicated session to talk about these deployment models that you can keep in mind. Storage, we've talked about this quite a bit. We're going to have a session that's going to talk specifically about your storage your way. So we're not asking you and mandating you and saying you have to move your data into our platform before we can help you. We don't do that, right? A lot of the other vendors will ask you to do that first. Move your data first, then we'll help you. And we're not going to ask you to do that. And then lastly, scale, right? We've heard this from many of you as a customer. We want to service more lines of businesses, more workflows, more processes, and I have subsidiaries, I have departments, I have geographically distributed teams that can I actually get things like child sites to be able to manage all of that stuff. I want to separate out the data and the policies and security policies across all of these different sites. I want to brand them. I want to customize the look and feel and a domain that I can name. So all of those things are actually done with child sites. And guess what? We're going to have a dedicated session on child sites and managing that complexities. So I've thrown a lot of information at you with the breadth of the platform. And again, the idea is to just introduce you guys to these concepts if you already are not familiar with it. But come grab us. We'll actually love to have a chat with you to dig into some of these things or just understand what else we could be doing to help you guys further. A little bit later on today, we do have as promised, a strategy session and direction. So we're going to give you some view about where we're investing all these R&D dollars and what we're looking to invest in, because that's our opportunity to also hear from you guys. Is this aligned with what you guys are expecting from us? Is there something else that we could be doing? So with that, I do want to tell you guys, we listen to you guys. So when you set up those one-on-one meetings, please tell us more about what we could be doing. Just last year, in the last 16 months, we released over 160 new capabilities, right? We actually had an event similar to this one back in September last year. Some of you came to that, and almost half, or actually more than half of those capabilities are already in the platform. We listened to you, we heard you, and we actually want to go incorporate that feedback into the product. So things like, help me automatically organize files in my folders. Being able to give you the full audit report and access control on who has access to what files and what folders, right? Deleting disabled users and setting changes in the logs and scenes, right? These are all changes that came in, and a lot more that came in that we already incorporated into the platform. So please seek out one of us, schedule that one-on-one meetings that, as Kevin talked about. And then what I do want to talk to you guys about is, well, what are these 160 things? Like, what did you really do? Because I'm not certain if I know about all of that. Well, there's an easy way for you to get that, which is through our monthly What's New pages. If you have been to our product documentation, right on top, we actually have pages that are dedicated, one page per month. And then we consolidate that into by the quarters for the year, is the What's New pages. That will tell you exactly all of the new capabilities and functions that we added. We actually create blog posts where it matters for you to get a lot more details related to that features or functionality. Within the application, there are certain features that we'll tell you about that you need to know about immediately. So there's a little bell icon that will show up and will show up with a little number of announcements that are there. Click on that for more information. That will take you to our product documentation as well for more information, as well as monthly newsletters. Have you guys been receiving our monthly newsletters? Yeah, I see some hands going up. Cool. So we're actually consolidating all of this information and sending you guys a monthly update around what's there. And then lastly, we take a lot of pride in our product documentation. So if it's not documented, it probably doesn't exist, right? But if it exists, it is going to be documented, and documented in a way that you can figure out how to just see what it is, but how do I leverage it and how can I use it? So with that, I thank you guys.